Oh, yes.
Welcome back, everyone. Today I'm excited to be bringing you a look at the new Transformers Generation Selects lift ticket. Now, lift ticket's very interesting because officially, despite being a Selects toy, he is part of the greater Legacy toy line, which so far hasn't been released. So he's kind of our first look at that. Now, there are some parts of the world where the Black Zarek toy, who's also branded as Legacy, has been released, so I guess depending on what part of the planet you're in, this guy may be first or second in that collection. And for anyone that doesn't know, Lift Ticket is a Diaclone-inspired recolor of the Earthrise Hoist toy. So if you're familiar with that toy, you have a good idea of what to expect here. That being said, if you've seen my reviews before, you know this goes. We're going to take a look at Lift Ticket's packaging, which is all sorts of shiny newness when it comes to Selects toys. Then we'll open the package up, see everything inside, we'll take a look at the instructions, and then we'll see Lift Ticket himself in both vehicle and robot modes. Naturally, I'll be doing some group shots and comparisons today, and then at the end of the video, I'll give my final thoughts. So Lift Ticket comes in your Select style packaging, that mailer box style, but it is far more ornate than previous Select style packagings. So you can see it's mostly covered in black print now, as opposed to being mostly bare cardboard, with the bare parts being kind of outlines, and they got this line art render of Lift Ticket right here. You can see his head, his little back-mounted, was it hollow projector thing, arms, all that. Wraps around here, around the bottom a bit. There's the Transformers Legacy branding. And then here we get our label for Lift Ticket. Now what's interesting is that even though this is a Selects toy, you'll notice there's no Generation Selects number on this at all. There's no GS, TAC, whatever. Like, it just says Deluxe Class Lift Ticket. So that's interesting. I'm wondering if that's just kind of like a one-off mistake. They forgot to put it on there. Or if they are officially dropping those Generation Selects numbers now. Maybe they're doing that in an attempt to, I guess, bring the Selects toys more in line with the mainline toys they stem from. Because sometimes there has been some confusion over exactly which greater toy line a Selects figure falls into, right? When you look at something like maybe Selects G2 Ramjet, you know, nothing explicitly says he's an Earthrise toy. I mean, you would probably assume because all the other Seekers from that line were from, you know, Earthrise. But there are certain things like that that might have been confusing. So maybe they're just dropping the Selects branding and really just using that as a category for online exclusives, but keeping them in line with, you know, Legacy or whatever have you. And honestly, I don't mind that. I don't really mind if, you know, they want to kind of minimize the presence of the Selects branding and put these things more obviously in place in a collection. I think that's a good idea. Okay, I've gone ahead and cut our label so we can open this up and see what surprises await us on the inside. There's the Legacy logo again. Look at the scrap of label. These don't cut very cleanly. Okay, what do we have here? This is interesting. Honestly, I'm not sure what we're looking at here. What is all that? Just lines? I'm not sure what that is. What is that? Really close-up detail or something? I don't know. Also, oddly enough, there's tape on the inside here for some reason. I don't know. So here's Lift Ticket. Yeah, wow, he really does look a lot like the old Fun Tub toy, doesn't he? So you can see, you know, he's the Earthrise Hoist toy done up in more McDonald's-y looking colors. So that's interesting. Oh, look at this. Look at this, our first Legacy instructions. Come on. Interesting. So here we go, our first purplish Legacy style instructions. So you can see Lift Ticket's render here, his name, the new Transformers Legacy branding, Transformers, all that. Still no number. I wonder if they're just dropping numbers entirely. You know, the whole War for Seibertron trilogy did like a little serial number for each toy. Maybe they're just getting rid of that now. I mean, I guess it's not really a loss, didn't really do anything, except maybe cataloging purposes. All right, this shows you how to attach his weapon to his fist, and then it just goes straight into his transformation, which is presumably identical renders to the Hoist toy. There you go. Shows you how to store his weapon on the side of the vehicle, finished product. So, pretty simple. I do like the colors. They make the renders nice and easy to see. A lot of the time, the instructions are really dark. And when they highlight pieces, they just kind of, it's almost like they're blacking them out. You can't see very well. So far I like it. Very G2 looking, like G2 Metasaur vibes right here with the purple and the light blue. So yeah, I mean, as long as it's easy to read though, I don't really care what color it is. Okay, now we get to see Lift Ticket in his vehicle mode. And naturally it's the same type of vehicle as Hoist. Even has very similar striping along the sides. However, you can see there's the addition of the word Wrecker. And I think a lot of people mistakenly believe this was a reference to the team, the Wreckers. But no, this word was actually present on the original Diaclone toy that would become Hoist. It was called, I forget the full name, but it was called like Wrecker type, right? Because it's like a tow truck kind of thing. So that's where that comes from. And you can see he's really mostly just a straight palette swap of Hoist, right? Replaces the green with red, replaces the orange with a very McDonald's cheese yellow. In fact, some people call this like the McDonald's Transformer. Now, honestly, I would have preferred if the yellows were a bit more toned down, not quite as bright, because it does make him look very McDonald's-like. But it's fine. It's close enough to the original. You can see that his weapon thing is actually painted silver, which is a nice touch because the regular Hoist toy, that's just left an unpainted orange, which we'll see here in a moment. But overall, it looks pretty good. The paint to plastic matching is not perfect, but it is very close. Like, easily close enough to satisfy me anyway. Still got his little projector thing up top. And, like Hoist, he is airlock compatible with the other Earthrise toys. So you just flip the wings out, swing this around, I think it pops into place. Yeah, there you go. And you get this little ramp thing that has an airlock connection on it. So you can attach him to, you know, other Earthrise figures, a big old Micromaster base, whatever you want to do. Now, I said this with Hoist too. I think this is one of the least useful airlock connections that they put into those toys. Because, okay, so, you know, you have a road and it leads to this ramp and then what? It just terminates on this short little ramp that, I mean, can't even hold a Micromaster. So it's cool that it's got the compatibility. I just don't really know what it's for. All it does is create a dead end in a Micromaster base that's already hurting for connection points, right? Something I've talked about is that the whole airlock concept behind Earthrise was really great. It really was. It was very well implemented, but it was severely underutilized, and we didn't get enough outlets to actually build a sprawling city or base or anything, and one that, you know, flowed well and, you know, had like connections that led everywhere. Unless you went and bought multiples of each toy, which you shouldn't really have to do to make that work. There should have been enough figures available to make something a little more coherent. But alas, that's not what happened. And really, that's a discussion for another day. I'll also point out that just like Hoist, this guy doesn't roll very well. He seems to have some clearance issues, and it might be the fists that hang down here. And that's another common issue is people don't like this vehicle mode because you've got the obvious hands underneath. And I agree. Now, you can flip the hands around so at least the fingers aren't showing. However, that actually makes the clearance problem worse because then you get more of it, you know, pointing down than what you have here. So really, this is the optimal way to do it, to get some kind of clearance to roll the wheels, though then you get more obvious, you know, hands on the bottom. So that's up to you. If you want it to be able to roll a little better, you know, leave the hands as is. If you want to hide them away a little better, you can just turn them around 180 and it doesn't look as incredibly obvious that that's a hand down there. It's just like a red square. So yeah, totally up to you how you want to display your toy. So, you know, the vehicle mode, it's decent. It's just got all the same issues as every other version of this mold. I keep mentioning Hoist, so here's a shot of Lift Ticket and Hoist together. And as I said, these two are more or less a one-for-one palette swap of each other. You know, green to red, orange to yellow, white to a light gray. The only real differences in deco that I can spot are Hoist has this little bit of like battle damage type deco right here, or dirt, or whatever that's supposed to be. The addition of the Wrecker word here to the striping, and then the fact that Lift Ticket's weapon is painted. Aside from that, I think they're more or less identical. Let's see. Well, it does appear that these little like run-through clips on the wheels are painted silver, which is nice. I didn't notice that, but I like that. One of the big issues with the War for Seibertron trilogy is that a lot of the car or truck-based Transformers, they get these really cheap like clip-on wheels where you get this like plastic peg showing through, and they don't get rid of that here, but they actually paint the peg silver, which is smart because it helps it blend in and look like the hubcap. I like that. That's really good. If they're going to keep going with these, you know, peg-through type assemblies, paint the peg. That looks a lot better than having this green showing through. I like that. It's not ideal. I wish they wouldn't make them like that, but I mean, if budget's really that constraining, throw a little bit of silver on there. Looks pretty good. So yeah, they both, they're just kind of doing their own thing. I'll be honest, I kind of like Lift Ticket's colors a little bit more. I don't know, the weird like forest green and orange just reminds me of a carrot over here with the Hoist, so I don't know. Plus the white looks a little bit out of place too. Look better in gray. And here's a shot with the only other Lift Ticket toy that's ever been produced, and this is the Collectors Club exclusive Lift Ticket. That was part of that Seibertron's Most Wanted theme of, I think it was the 2014, 2015 BotCon, I can't remember. And, he was meant to be a character that was actually from the Diaclone universe. So instead of being a sentient transformer, Lift Ticket was just a mech piloted by this little one right here, little human pilot. So that was a really neat little nod to actually have like actual Diaclone robots in a Transformer story. This new Lift Ticket, as far as we know, I mean, I don't think he's really been given much of a personality, but based on other Diaclone-inspired Transformers to be released in the War for Cybertron trilogy and beyond, he is a sentient Transformer just based off of the Diaclone toy. So that's the key difference there. I will say, I actually prefer the shades of red and yellow used on the older Lift Ticket to the new one. The red, it's not a big difference. It's got a little bit less of like a purplish tint to it than the new one, and I do prefer that a bit. And then, I was talking about more muted yellows. This is kind of perfect, where it's yellow, but it's not really, really bright. If they had taken these exact colors and put them on this guy, he would be just that much better. Again, it's a small thing, not deal-breaking by any means, but I think his colors come out a little bit better. However, I think as far as mold choice, this one works a lot better, because the only reference point for what became Lift Ticket, the Diaclone toy, appeared as what was the Generation 1 Hoist figure. So if you're going to recreate that, you want something that looks as close as possible to that Generation 1 design. This guy is based on Hoist's IDW appearance, which is totally fine. I love the IDW comics, and having a different version of Hoist is okay, but it doesn't make a lot of sense for a Lift Ticket. It's just, with Fun Pub, they were working with what they had. This was the closest thing you had to a G1 Hoist at the time, so I don't fault it for that, but I think, getting the actual, like, correct alt mode, correct robot form works a little bit better for this very obscure character. And now we get to see Lift Ticket's robot mode, and I'm happy to report that all of his tolerances feel just like they did on Hoist, so no issues there. Everything feels nice and tight, no real problems at all, no floppiness, which is very good, because if you saw my Trailbreaker review, you know that my Trailbreaker copy, this arm right here, was just completely floppy. There was no friction holding up, and you looked down, it would just drop right down. So luckily, he does not suffer from that. So that just seems like it's more of a one-off issue on my copy of Trailbreaker than it is, a sign that the mold is going bad or something, because this guy feels completely fine. So probably a case of just a poorly fired pin in the shoulder there. So, yeah, he looks good. He feels good. Very intimidating presence, right? Very big, boxy character. I like the yellow eyes, the Diaclone-inspired yellow eyes, instead of just your standard Autobot blue. Really helps set him apart a little bit from his fellow bots. And, yeah, just looks pretty good in this mode. Here he is to compare with Hoist. And, again, same robot modes. Again, tolerances pretty much identical. I still really prefer the new colors, though. Hoist's colors, to me, have always just been really ugly. The dark green, the orange, and then all this prominent white you got here, those don't look like colors you'd find on a robotic being, you know what I mean? They're just very plasticky, which, I mean, obviously they're made of plastic, but they're supposed to look like robots, you know what I mean? So I think the new colors are way, way better. Now, a lot of people, are going to be more interested in Hoist than Lift Ticket because there are more G1 purist types out there than there are Diaclone collectors, and I understand that. But speaking, just purely based on what I see, I think Lift Ticket's the far better looking robot mode. While we're at it, because I'm sure some people would be disappointed if I didn't do this shot, here is all three uses of this Hoist/Trailbreaker mold together. So Hoist, Trailbreaker, Lift Ticket. This is what I was talking about with the arms. Look at this. Boop. Boop. I mean, no friction at all. Nothing. And then, turns out it's even this arm too. So I was wrong. They're both bad on this toy. I mean, he is practically an unposable mess. Very disappointing. So I'm very pleased to see that that's not the case for Lift Ticket. Again, I hope it's just my copy of this guy. He just has bad pins. I know there is a blue recolor of Trailbreaker coming, which is was like DK9, I think, or DX9, something like that. Another, Diaclone inspired toy. I really hope it doesn't have these issues. I don't see why it would, because these are the same pieces as they are on here. So if it's not an issue on this guy, it shouldn't be an issue on any further releases, but we'll see. So yeah, here's all of them together. Old limp arms included. And for our last comparison, here's another shot of the club exclusive Lift Ticket toy. Now, personally, I like the IDW robot mode more than I do the G1 robot mode. The Hoist and Trailbreaker designs from G1 were never my favorite. I always thought they were just kind of, I don't know, dumpy or goofy looking. The long skinny legs and the big blocky torso area just made them kind of look really weird. Very, I guess, corny as opposed to cool. Now, I'm not going to, dock the toy for looking like this. It's looking how it's supposed to look, right? So it makes it a good figure. It achieves it very well. But I have to say that I love the more streamlined redesign that IDW gave Hoist and Trailbreaker and all them. And then, of course, it carries over to this Lift Ticket. Really, the only issue with the Thrilling 30/IDW toys is they're way too small. They're very, very small deluxes. I mean, they should be at least as tall as these guys, or about that same height. And they're pretty tiny, which is probably the one thing that, they have against them. Because other than that, they're actually really fantastic figures. Good transformation. They lack some of the more modern conventions, like the ankle tilt, but as far as just what the design was for the time, I think this guy is really excellent. And this completes our look at the new Generation Selects, or Legacy, Lift Ticket. He's a really interesting introduction to the Legacy line because he's not a really proper new toy, right? He's a recolor of a toy from like 2 years ago. So weird way to start, but it's a pretty quality mold, and it's a nice little Diaclone reference. It's a great figure, right? The tolerances on it are great. So if you're okay with the Earthrise Hoist mold, you should be pretty excited to get this guy. He's just a really nice recolor, arguably better coloring than Hoist in my opinion. And he's pretty satisfying all around and really scratches that itch for, kind of fleshing out your Autobot ranks a little bit with some more kind of generic or, lesser known characters. So, yeah, even though it's weird we're not getting something like, the new RC or something first, it's still a nice little introduction, kind of whet our appetites for what's coming, because Legacy is going to be a celebration of the entire brand. So I would expect to see some more, fairly recent molds being reused in that line, because even though it's a new trilogy and all that, it's still made with the same aesthetic and the same engineering as War for Seibertron, so they can blend pretty seamlessly together. So I'm pretty excited for what's coming. I very much enjoy this guy at about $20 or so. I think he's worth picking up if you don't mind more obscure characters, and he's just a lot of fun. He's good posability. He's got the whole airlock compatibility, so you can attach into your Micromaster base if you want to. And I think if you get him, you won't be disappointed. Of course, that is just my take on Lift Ticket, so now I want to know what you all think of him. Do you see a place for this guy in your collection? Do you like Diaclone toys or obscure characters, or are you just really a completionist? Or do you not want this, either because you're just not interested in a Diaclone toy, you don't like the mold, anything along those lines? Any and all feedback is always welcome in the comments section. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to toss it a like. Let YouTube know you want to see more stuff like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you always get a heads up when I post something new. I thank you for joining me for our first look at a Legacy toy and this review of Generation Select's Lift Ticket. And with all that said, I will see you next time.